Well, hello. Hi. I hope everyone is doing all right. We are taking a pause on the Manor in the Woods and doing this little project that I've been working on. So my goal with this is I found a really easy house in House Flipper 1, which actually was through the HGTV DLC, called The Old Lady's Home. And I picked it for one because it was one house that I haven't shown on the playlist for the channel. But two, it also looked like a really easy house to recreate in House Flipper 2, which is what I needed because I've never created a house in House Flipper 2. And based on their other controls, I figured I would need easy and nothing complex because I'm silly and don't understand mechanics right away. It takes me a little while of playing around with it to get it. So I picked this house, and my goal is to kind of side by side. The panel is going to shrink, and you're going to see both games play at the same time, where I am cleaning and painting, decorating, as best as I could line them up side by side. Now the fact is I did the House Flipper 1 house a week apart from the House Flipper 2 house that I created. So some of it was created from memory. I did try to look back at my footage. I actually even made like little rough pencil. It wasn't pencil, it was pen. I don't own a pencil. But a pen sketch laying out the floor rooms and that kind of thing to kind of help myself keep them as close as possible. But the one thing that I was really bad about is I didn't decorate the rooms at the same time. So it may jump a little. I did line them up in the video, but as far as you actually seeing them, it may be a little rough. So this is kind of an experiment. I don't know how this is going to go. I can't even promise this is going to be a series. It was just something I wanted to try and see the differences between the two games, basically, and kind of highlight the things that I love, the features I love, the features that I'm not so much of a fan of and I would like to see changed or updated or even bug fixed. And one of the things is we have a lawnmower in House Flipper 1. Now, it didn't come with the base game. Of course, it was with the DLC, the gardening DLC, which is one of the first DLCs they came out with. I don't count the Apocalypse one a true DLC because they released that with the 1.0 of the game. But the gardening DLC was one of their first DLCs, and it actually is one that was their roughest. It didn't go so well on its release. But you know what, they're learning and they figured it out and they fixed it. And hopefully they're going to give us an update. I know I saw a live stream where they talked about there is still things that they recognize that needs to be updated. So hopefully that is on its way. But I wanted to show a rare mowing because, again, we don't have that in House Flipper 1, or House Flipper 2, excuse me. Though it's not a big need in House Flipper 2. A weed whacker would be nice, though. In the first gardening, you couldn't go through obstacles like trees. You had to go around them. And that was very difficult. They had very small hitboxes for what they can clean up, and that was very tedious. The sound was even changed a little bit. The sound, especially for the weed whacker, is a little bit more high-pitched and really burrowed into your ear. I was very sensitive to the sound. I did not like the sound. And in fact, the gardening DLC did make me quit the game for a couple years because I couldn't handle it. I was so excited for the DLC and was so disappointed when it's released. And there was just, I can't remember, I think it was like some MMO with some other friends that they were really excited for, and I guess I just kind of walked away from House Flipper at that time. And then came back after a couple years after they updated it, and I was like, okay, it's not so bad. I think I came back with the release of HGTV, or roughly around that time. I don't think I was back at the time of the release, but really close. We didn't always have the hose either. He used to clean the outside walls with the mop. It's the Spectacular Mop 3000. Alright, here we go. Double screen. Pretty much trying to line it up. Of course, the house on the left is House Flipper, and the house on the right is House Flipper 2. I tried to recreate it as best as I could, but Anyway, so first thing first, I sold everything. Of course, I toured the rooms differently, so what you're seeing as far as what's being sold, of course, is not the same, but bye-bye curtain, bye-bye. No, my curtains. That's the other thing, I guess. We've already heard me. I've complained about it so early on. I don't understand why they released the game and didn't give us curtains. That makes no sense to me. But whatever, it's fine. It's fine. It's a make-believe world. I'm sure there is no peeping Toms. The House Flipper 2 has a different garbage system. Instead of selling everything, you're just blindly picking it up and putting it into some kind of bag on our person in House Flipper 1. We do have a limited size bag in House Flipper 2, and we have to throw it into a trash can of sorts. In some ways, it is a lot faster, especially when you have your upgraded garbage picking tool. Picks up really fast. As we can see in House Flipper 1, I am still on my way of gutting, selling, and picking up garbage, so to speak. Alright, anytime you see standby on one screen, it's because they didn't line up. It took me longer of an activity to sell and clean than it did in the other version. So then we go standby while we wait until it lines back up again. And I found it kind of interesting at the places which some things were faster to do, like the cleaning and the selling was faster than it was in House Flipper 1. Alright, we're back. Now we're cleaning. We won't clean windows in this version just because I forgot to dirty them up when I built the house. My fault. But it is fairly identical for the most part. The mechanic is the same idea, though window cleaning in House Flipper 2 does seem to be a little easier and more forgiving with the sensitivity of the window cleaner. If you are in a bind with the window cleaner, if you're struggling in House Flipper 1, you can use a controller to clean windows. I did that before we were able to sell and replace windows. For any overly large size window, I would use a controller to clean the windows. That helps. Feature in House Flipper 1 that we don't have in House Flipper 2 is plastering walls and repairing them. It doesn't look like I haven't run across anything where I've had to repair a wall. It seems like a mechanic for House Flipper 1 only. It's been so long since I played House Flipper 1. I forgot for a minute how to plaster. I kept trying to use the tiling tool to grab the plaster and was like, why isn't it working? Alright, we're back on 2. My goal is to knock down all of these walls and show the difference of that. I had planned that in my head when I pitched the build. I knew one of the features I wanted to show was tearing down walls and building walls. If you ever see me lean back and like it looks like I'm walking in a circle or a square, it is because I am, it's a lot of artists do it, but I take a look back and try to make sure everything looks the way that I'm supposed to, and I'm trying to look at it from a different perspective to make sure that all corners, all viewpoints are where I want them to be. So if you're ever curious. I don't know what artists call it, but usually I just call it like my internal eye. I'm trying to picture the end result or what is close to the end result with what is here. And so sometimes I stop and I turn around and just, I don't know, kind of imagine it. And I do that in all games that have like a building feature. If you see me ever stop and walk around in a circle or a square, that's why. I'm not crazy, I promise. Alright, fun part, I'm still knocking down walls and not so much in House Flipper 2. But we did know that because we can break down so many walls at once, a big square, of course it was going to be faster. And while I'm still breaking walls down in House Flipper 1, I decided to extend out this bedroom here, the former bedroom. It is sized a smidge different. It's a little skinnier than the House Flipper 1 version, but not enough to make any real difference. It's probably short by like 2 rows of blocks. One big difference is how we place tiles, woodworking, we paint walls. It is something that has been completely reworked for House Flipper 2 and does make it more time consuming, but at the same time we can do a lot more details. But yeah, House Flipper 1, you just pick a corner and grab across. I sometimes in really big builds do really miss that feature. Yeah, it's going to be a big significant time difference between the two. So House Flipper 1 is now on hold while we lay down the floor work. And about now, I'm making the decision in House Flipper 2 because I can. I'm probably going to put, I don't know what they're called, trims on the bottom. And if you're wondering, yes, you are getting a voiceover. When I did both videos, I didn't record them with any volume or any commentary because initially I was going to have these videos play really fast. But it only took me a couple hours to make each house, and so I decided to do a voiceover. Oh, I'm about to discover something that is unusual. I don't know if it's because this is a house that I created in the workshop or in sandbox mode, but if you look, I can change the windowsill and get rid of the old molding and old look of the window, where if I am in a player-made map of someone else's or a vanilla map, I can't. I have to sell the window and do it. And it's going to be the same way for the fencing that's out there too. I can change one and then copy it over to the others, and again in all other versions I can't. So it must just be a feature to to the fact that I created this house, and it makes me question if they really mean it to be a mechanic in all other versions of the game, but just for some reason it's bugged. I'm not sure, but it was something I found interesting, and it was like, oh, that's weird. This ability to change every square into a version is something I look forward to messing around with later. I do have a lot of pattern designs that I am thinking about, but I will tackle at a different time. Right now I'm just going with my classic look. The one that I seem to favor so much, which is the light browns, creams, wood. Alrighty, left side should be coming back online. And now we're painting, and here's another really big difference between the two. We have a paintbrush that we manipulate across the entire board that paints one square at a time, where this plate paints a vertical stripe up, which kind of limits you on how you can paint and decorate, which is really a shame. It was one of the biggest things about House Flipper 1 from the very beginning that made me very sad. I didn't quite understand why this was a mechanic, why they were stuck with this mechanic and nothing else. But the House Flipper 1 painting is actually in many ways a lot faster than House Flipper 2. But I don't mind the fact that it takes us longer because we do get a lot more range of creativity. On House Flipper 2, me painting that, I can tell you the reason why I painted that entire square was my dog wanted my attention. And she has learned that if she taps my elbow, it is, I have no choice but to let go of the mouse. And that she tapped my elbow and I clicked and painted that. And yes, I gave her attention. She got the lovin's. Tiny complaint, but not a very big one. Both games show their color paint differently from what's in the store. It's always slightly darker than what you actually see when you go to buy it, and I don't know how I feel about that. Or it's lighter in House Flipper 2. Alright, we're back for doors and windows. It's mostly the same concept with both games. They both work very similar. Fun story is Doors and Windows is actually a fairly new update for House Flipper 1. We, for the longest time, didn't have that ability. And most often you just had to deal with the location of the front door and back door in any house that you purchased vanilla-wise. So it was really a nice feature. Same with windows and plumbing. Well, they allowed us to change plumbing a lot sooner, quite some time ago. In the game when it's first released, we couldn't touch the plumbing. So however the plumbing was in the vanilla house stayed that way, which was quite annoying. Same with windows and doors. Choosing interior doors, I recognize I chose two different color doors. I actually forgot that I had chosen this rough wood. In House Flipper 1, I thought I went white, but I'm not mad about it. Little break in House Flipper 1 as I add the molding on the bottom, or trim. I'm not sure what it's called, or if it's both. Architecturally speaking, in Minnesota, finding wood trim is very common, or wood molding. It's really common here. I'm not sure how it is in other areas, but yeah, it's really common, which is why you see me use it a lot. I chose a baby blue color for both rooms. I figured that would be an easy color to match, even if it's not exact. It will look similar enough that we can get away with it. I get the bathrooms pretty identical, which made me excited. Shower, cabinet, sink, and toilet. The only thing is of course we have less knicky-knacky stuff to clutter it up, and I do clutter things up, so that's a thing. I do play on PC, and I do have so many workshop items. If House Flipper 2 comes with the workshop, I may have no choice but to uninstall House Flipper 1 to make room for it, but I'm not sure. I do have multiple SSD drives, so I might store it elsewhere, but still, it's a little excessive on my part. This is going to be the only room that's really a lot different. Or I guess I really don't feel like it's a lot different, but it is about 2 blocks too skinny, too narrow. But I will try to stick with it. The only other thing, too, is I do add a laundry room to the office. After I signed out, I thought about it, and I was like, oh, if I worked in an office with a laundry room in the same room, I'd be really annoyed. But at the same time, ease of convenience. In fact, in my home, my laundry room isn't that far off. It's probably, even though there's a wall separating us, it's probably the same distance as in this game. But I still forget to do my laundry. I'm so bad about it. Originally, I wasn't going to paint the ceilings. I actually didn't mind the beige. But in this particular light where there's a daytime change, I decided I really didn't like it, and I thought it needed to change it to white to give it more of a bright feel. If you see any items that I use and you want to know what its name, I'd be hard pressed to tell you, but definitely tell me a timestamp and I can look for you, and I can see if I can find the name of the artist on the Steam work page. But the fact is I do have an insane amount of workshop items. Right now, my favorite person, but they are also the only person who's posting content, but it's so good, is Mrs. String Sum, I believe is their name, and they have some really detailed stuff in a wide range of colors, which made me really happy. Another game mechanic that I do wish that they would update is the fact that I can freeze time on House Flipper 1 and make it daytime always, and in House Flipper 2 I can't. So I am a little bummed by that because the game is so dark, but I will turn lights on in a minute. I will hook them up. The light system is something that I absolutely adore in House Flipper 2. The tethering them and controlling what light switches turn on what lights, that opened up a range of cleverness that I hadn't been expecting. I am in a desperate need of more furniture, more decorations, more knickknacks. I know I probably say it in every video, but I just feel like there's such a limited amount. Yes, I can change the color of them to give it a better look, but still, I don't think Frozen District realized how crazy we are over the different knickknacks and things like that can really add to it. In fact, Mrs. Strangesome has the beginning in the workshop to do a grocery store. Now, I have done quite a few different grocery store types for the channel for House Flipper 1. I did a country style grocery store. I did kind of a drug style grocery store. And then I think I did like a big... I did a shopping mall, but small, like it was more like a strip mall with a jewelry store, a hairstylist, a coffee shop. I can't remember. There was one other thing I had in there too. I don't remember what the other one was. But I did all of those off of items with the workshop. So I do miss that creativity that we got with those items. I do need them. If you hear me, Frozen District, please. The gun is the update to the gun for House Flipper 2 is, of course, one of the best features. You can change colors, you can modify, you can copy the style, you can paste the style. All of those are actually is a must. When I was playing House Flipper 1 after playing House Flipper 2, I kept trying to use the gun and struggling so bad. The other thing I kept struggling to do was when I was painting, I kept trying to make the brush bigger on House Flipper 1 and then had to laugh at myself at the fact that, that is the size of the brush. I do use this upper half wall on a buffet. I do use it a lot, especially in House Flipper 2. I think I've done it now 3 times, almost probably back to back. I can't help it. I just really like how it looks. I like how it divides the room up without really dividing the room. It still keeps kind of an open floor plan, but gives it some division. So I keep doing it. The other feature, too, that I keep talking myself out of is I do tend to want to do built-in bookshelves. Way more than that's healthy. I know. Yes, you have to put up with me putting up shades and curtains because I missed shades and curtains so much, and to do it in House Flipper 2. So yeah. I couldn't make the furniture identical, so I kept within the idea of being similar. I'm pretty sure I use these dining room chairs too much, too. I really like them. Apparently, I want them for myself. Another feature I really love is, and change to House Flipper 2, is I love the flower pots. I sometimes wish that it will allow you to save a setting that you do, or a mix of flowers, like you can make a favorite. Or I wish when you copied the flower pot that there was maybe like a way to copy the flowers that are also in the pot. But at the same time, it's not a big deal. I can recreate it easy enough. But the mixing and matching of the flowers makes me really happy. House Flipper 1, the amount of flowers that I own in the workshop is crazy because, of course, you can't mix and match flowers. I could use with some more flower options in House Flipper 2, But again, not a must. I do want book sets as well in House Flipper 2. Placing them one by one has become tedious, painful, and I kind of sometimes resent it just a little bit. Even if they gave the ability to add, like if there was something that you could toggle that said put the books together and place 5 at a time or something like that, that would make me really happy. But I've yet to, they don't have it. So one by one we place them. when it comes to couches and chairs, you'll see me tend to favor a certain set. I don't mean to, but the thought process behind that is so many of the chairs actually don't look that comfortable to sit in. And I always prefer any furniture that I use to look comfy, look like something that I would be wanting to sit in and not break my back. The same thing goes for beds too. So many of the beds are so flat with no pillows or no fluffiness to them that I tend to shy away from them subconsciously because I'm like, oh, that looks like it's going to hurt their back. And these are people we'll never see. They're completely believe in my head. So of course it doesn't matter if the couch doesn't have any cushion, but to me it matters. So that's why you'll see me shy away from a perfectly nice looking couch, because I think, oh, they would have to snap their back to be able to sit in that chair. Or if you're like my mother, you get in the chair but you will never get out of the chair. Speaking of, I know, completely topic change while we're waiting. In my local Costco, but also Sam's Club, which I have one in my town, they both sell furniture, and the furniture is so low to the ground. Now, I'm a very, very short person. I am not blessed with height, and being so short, I find the chairs even low, and I can't help but think, if I find them low, what would a normal height person or a tall person think? Like, when I sat on them, like I tested them out, my feet touched the floor, and I was like, well, a normal sized person, their knees would be up to their chin. But anyway, I just thought of it because I was just at my local Costco, and they were just changing out their furniture, and I was like, that is so low to the ground. And it's very common too in Costco, more so than Sam's Club. In Costco, you'll always find some the men's hanging out around that area, just chilling, waiting for their wives to do the shopping. For some reason, it really amuses me. Though I will give kudos to the men that have the babies with them while the wife is doing the shopping. keeping the kids occupied while they're off doing. But Costco's so clever. I'm sure every retailer is clever, but Costco's clever that right next to the chairs where they knew that the men tend to gravitate to, right next to that is also their big section of toys. So makes me laugh. In House Flipper 1, quite a few of the items that are from the workshop are actually really old items. Items that have been from the workshop for years. And I couldn't tell you who originally made them, but I keep using them because I really like them. And actually, in fact, a while back with the release of the Farm DLC, I eventually had to accept my fate and completely uninstall and reinstall the game and completely uninstall all my mods and then choose them again, but being a little bit more, I guess not, I want to say picky, but I definitely bypassed the items that I knew I didn't use, or the ones that were a one-time use from builds. Like I was really bad about downloading stuff from Halloween or Christmas and then using it once and then it just be in my workshop tab, just hanging out, taking up space. So I had to really get into the habit of, once I was done with those items, to completely uninstall them to just make my computer happy. I do have to say that House Flipper 1 has crashed less, but I get to a certain size on House Flipper 1, and House Flipper 1 has a bad tendency to crash to desktop. And it's so bad, in fact, that the last 3 houses that I have done, I can't complete in House Flipper 1 because the game won't allow me to go onto the plot anymore. Like if I'm on the plot and I'm building, I can stay on the plot and I tend to be fine. But if I crash on the plot, or if I leave and I come back and then I crash, I can't ever go back to that plot, which makes me really sad. And I did check Steam Workshop. It's a common problem with people for House Flipper 1. It's something about the file becomes corrupt, or the house plot becomes corrupt when you crash on there. So makes me sad, and it is something that I am adoring in House Flipper 2. We have really pushed it to its limits. The one house, the manor in the woods, I would never be able to visit that house in House Flipper 1. And the thing is my computer, she's a beast, and I love her very much, computer, if you hear me. And so I know that there is problems with House Flipper 1. It's poorly optimized for what we're looking for. House Flipper 1 also has a bad history of having bad releases. So what I can tell you just from my personal side, when House Flipper 1 released, it was just asset flipping, which wasn't a bad thing. Nobody was particularly mad at it. It was actually at a time when the assets weren't seen that much. Also, they have said themselves that they hadn't expected or anticipated that the game to suddenly get a cult following like it did, and grow to the point that so many people actually really, really wanted the game, which I find kind of funny because, of course, it grew. Everyone loves this game. But, yeah, they had a lot of bug fixes. They had to figure out how to make furniture from scratch and introduce that, because so many of the furnitures were furniture that we knew already. And in fact, if you play Phasmophobia, or seen me play Phasmophobia, I actually did a couple of series. Well, I did a huge playlist of Phasmophobia, where I played with others, but then I also did a small series where I played solo. But one of my favorite things to do was go into some of the original Phasmophobia houses and compare them to House Flipper 2, because they were almost identical in many, many ways. We would recognize the pictures, and it would make me laugh every time. And of course I played House Flipper 1 before I played Phasmophobia, so I remember the very first time playing Phasmophobia and walking into a house and then being absolutely distracted and kicked out of immersion because I was like, hey, I know this furniture, and annoying my friends about asset flipping. I try not to point it out as much now, but when I first started my YouTube career, every time I saw an asset flip, it would always catch my eye. But for your guys' immersion's sake, I stopped calling them out. But yeah, it was something kind of funny. The other thing about House Flipper 1 that House Flipper 2 does better was, as House Flipper released new furniture sets, they were very inconsistent in the color palette and the wood color palette, that sometimes it made it very obnoxious to match the wood, where of course in House Flipper 2 it's much easier to match or get the color palette that you want. Where in House Flipper 1, they had completely different wood colors that you wouldn't find on one set that you'd find on another set. So if you wanted to mix match for whatever reason, it was sometimes harder to do because the woods were different. Also, what is with not giving us full towels for the bathroom, by the way? We have these little itty-bitty little kitchen towels, which is fine. I will make do with them. But I want a big old towel. Where's my big old towel? Alright, at this point, House Flipper 2 is going to go pop away until the end of the video because I am just detailing in House Flipper 1 and kind of goofing off and adding all the knickknacks. While I tend to not be a maximalist, I do like a lot of things to make a home look lived in. Now, again, it depends on the theme of what I'm doing, but if I don't have a theme, I know I talked about this before, if I don't have a theme and I am just winging it, which is kind of what I'm doing here in a way, when I first started, I did have kind of a bit of an idea in mind because I knew I needed to try to match up the furniture kind of as similar as I could, or could be bothered, I guess I should say. I did have that in plan, but when I'm winging it this way, I do tend to decorate what I can only assume is how I think I want my dream home to be. Oh, but at the same time, I do have a mother who is heavily into decorating, who has beaten it into my head, not physically, just repetitively. She's very a type of person who wants a really homey home, something where people feel welcomed, and I think that heavily influences me in all my homes and House Flipper. When I'm making just a house, I want it to feel like something where someone would be 100% comfortable kicking their shoes off and throwing themselves on the couch and watching TV and eating snacks with me or cuddling my dogs. My dogs are lap dogs, so yeah. Anyway, so that heavily influences me. I want it to be a place where people can feel comfortable and welcomed and just happy to be there. In House Flipper 1, I do spend, at this point, I am spending a little bit longer than I mean to putting in the knickknacks and the cluttery stuff. It's just I missed it so much. I missed my wide variety of selection of stuff that I kind of just let myself go a little wild here, decorating it in House Flipper 1. Plus, the game is behaving well. It's letting me decorate. So many times when I start to pull out the clutter to a certain point, it starts to lock up on me, and it hasn't yet, so that makes me happy. Both in House Flipper 1 and House Flipper 2, you'll very rarely see me clutter up the cabinets. I think that's going to be a habit held over from House Flipper 1. Sacrificing the clutter in the drawers is a sacrifice I'm not really 100% willing to make for the loss of just how well the game runs. That's also the other thing is early House Flipper 1. How quite often the items would load in is pretty much they would hover above whatever surface that they were on. They would hover, and after you land into the game, they would fall to the surface. And for the most part, you wouldn't notice, but oftentimes, you wouldn't notice. Alright, doing a last tour, making sure everything is as I want it to be. And it's close enough. I'm okay with it. We're gonna sell it, so that's gonna be another big difference between the two is how things are sold on auction. House Flipper 1, we have the same people that we've been selling to the whole time. I can tell you right now it's going to be the married couple, the older married couple. I only know that because they favor my white walls. I always sell to them. They have bought so many houses from me. So I appreciate in House Flipper 2 that has changed. Gives you a little bit more what feels like a variety of people that you're selling to. Another big change that's coming is the HDTV DLC introduced the before and after. And I miss that so much in House Flipper 2. The rumor is, according to the devs, we are getting that feature and it's not attached to a DLC. So that'd be nice. Yeah, here's our before and after in House Flipper 1. And House Flipper 2, we're just going to do a quick little tour outside. I actually don't sell anything in House Flipper 2. It stays as is. Well, guys, thanks so much for keeping me company. I will be back with something else very soon, I promise.